Alright, so today we're here with Jake and his 1987 FC RX7 with probably the most unique swap that I've ever seen in an RX7. I'm really excited to present this today. And no, it's not an LS, for those of you out there thinking that it is. So Jake, why don't you tell us what you have going on under the hood of this thing?
So today I've got a Mazda RX7 with about the most unique swap that I've ever even heard of, and it's actually a twin turbo VG30 out of a Nissan 300ZX.
So cool! Oh man, I've never seen this swap before. I actually met Jake here at Cars and Coffee, and I was immediately attracted to the car, and I thought, holy crap, no one's ever done this before, which it turns out it's a really rare swap. So what'd you start out with this thing? Was it bone stock?
Started off, it was a bone stock rotary, and an NA rotary at that, and the body was all one color, the front was all smashed in. Drove it around like that, and then my oil control seals in the rotary died, so yeah, it flooded my engine with oil.
Oh no.
Yeah, so I actually had one rotor I was running around with going like for a couple of days, and so I got in and I tore it down, and I had every intention of rebuilding the rotary engine, and then I started examining the plates, and it turned out I would not have been able to reseal it. There was too much step wear, too much wear, and everything else. It would have been the same as if you threw a head gasket onto a piston engine without resurfacing the head.
Yeah.
Or putting new pistons into a cylinder that was tapered.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have sealed right. It would have never been good, and the price for new housings and new rotors and all that is like $2,000 a pop.
Yeah.
So I was looking at this and I was like, well, I really don't feel like spending $4,000 for a reseal on a rotary that's only going to give me 150, 160 horsepower.
Yeah. So what made you decide to do this swap? Because there's so many swaps that you could do in an RX-7.
Yeah, and everybody's, you should LS swap it. I don't know what it is. I love the LS on paper. They make great power, but for me, I personally, I just don't like the way that they sound.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to drive a car that's like, I hate the sound of this thing, even though it's got a lot of power. So I started looking around, and I was like, you know what, I want something with 6 cylinders that's turbocharged.
Yeah.
And I started sifting through, and then everybody wants a 2JZ or a 1JZ.
Of course.
And the prices on them, everybody's marked them up.
Yeah.
Here you go, broken bottom end JZ,
drift tax.
Yep, $3,000 drift tax. So then I was like, okay, well, I am a fan of Nissan engines, so let's look into this. And it came down to either a RB25 or the VG30. And with the VG30, I was thinking, you know what? It's a V6, so most of the weight's still going to be kind of more back behind the strut towers.
Yep.
Instead of having a couple cylinders over top of the, the steering rack.
Yeah.
It might make the front end handle a little weird. And so ultimately I just chose, you know what, I want to retain some of my handling. It might not be a dyno queen like the RBs can be.
Yep.
But, the car's meant to handle. It's meant to have drive and have fun in.
Yeah, and then you centralize the weight more a little bit. Nice.
Exactly.
So I've seen this motor with the hood open here, and it is shoved in there.
Oh yeah.
What are some of the trials that you've overcome to get this motor in this car?
So the biggest thing that I had was the space between the subframe and the hood. The VG motor is very, very tall.
Yeah.
And most of that is the intake manifold.
Okay.
So I actually had to drop out the subframe and put a spacer kit underneath it to get a little bit of clearance, and then you can kind of see right about here where I've kind of vented the hood up just a little bit, and that's just to give it that extra little bit of clearance.
Yeah.
And the back side, it actually wasn't that bad. There was one spot by the driver's side where I had to take, hammer and a 2x4 to it just to kind of bend it out.
Yep.
I had to put some heat shielding around my fuel lines because the back turbo runs about that far from them.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I keep a fire extinguisher handy just...
Hey, that makes it more fun, right?
Oh yeah.
So you fabricated all your intercooler piping?
All the
and everything?
intercooler piping, all the mounts.
Wow.
Everything was custom. The transmission mount had to be custom. The shifter bracket had to be... I had to modify it. Just kind of offset it just a little bit so that it would fit in where the FC shifter hole is.
Wow. So all in all, not an easy swap to do.
It is not your Fisher-Price my first motor swap thing that you want to do at all.
It's a big boy swap.
Very.
So what are you running for engine management?
As far as I know, it's got a daughter board on it. I took the PCM apart and there's an extra piece on it. I don't know what it is. It could be a NIS tune for all I know.
Okay.
That's just what I got into it. As far as I can tell, it's removed the rev limiter and the boost restriction on it.
Okay.
The factory ones can only run about 6 pounds and then they start fuel cutting. I've actually had mine spike up at about 15 before.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
So how much power are you putting down?
Somewhere north of 300.
I'm sure that's a happy power number for this car.
Oh yeah, it's very, very traction impaired as it is.
Walking around all over the place.
Oh yeah, I try to do, I try to pass people on the freeway and end up doing rolling burnouts instead.
So what do you have for transmission, rear end?
Transmission is the Turbo 300ZX transmission. It came with the motor. The rear end is currently the stock S4 RX7 rear end. Kind of waiting for that to blow up.
Yeah, running a little bit too much through that, huh?
Yeah, right now the weakest link is between the tires and the pavement, and that's where I intend to keep it until I can get a differential that can handle a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah, because you start putting more traction on that thing, and that's when you really start braking stuff.
Yeah.
Wow. So, so what are your future plans with this? Obviously, it looks a little rough on the outside.
A little bit, I'm trying to keep the body as straight as possible. I don't want one of these crumpled beer can looking drift cars that everybody's got. I'd like to keep it somewhat clean. I'm eventually going to do all one color. I've got a lowering kit that I'm going to do, and that's the other issue that I'm running into is the front is now about that much lower. So I've got to mix and match some spring rates without doing coilovers because, this is my daily driver, and I want it to be comfortable.
Yeah.
I've driven on coilovers before, and it's just you hit a pebble, and it's this is not fun. So it's I want something that's comfortable, so I got to find some springs and mix and match them to make it even.
Yeah. Wow, super cool car, man. Should we go for a ride?
Let's go.
Woo! Damn! That's happy horsepower numbers for this thing. Wow.
It gets up and moves.
Yeah, I like it.
And the best part is it can still handle every bit as good as it did when it had the rotary. You think all that weight's gonna really, mess with the balance, but it really didn't.
Yeah.
And it added it in a way that it keeps the front end planted.
Yeah. Well, and I don't think, like you were saying before, I don't think that you would get that same sort of even weight distribution with having a big inline 6 hanging out the front,
Yeah, no, that's one of the reasons that I went with the V6. It still handles, it's still nimble. I've actually gotten a little bit tail happy on a couple of times when it's wet out.
Yeah.
And the car just pivots right around the center of it still.
Yeah.
One of the issues I was having with the rotary and handling is it would get a little bit understeering because as I was accelerating, the front end would actually start to pick up just a little bit.
Yeah.
But with the VG, it's only 200 pounds more than the rotary engine.
Really?
Yeah.
You'd think it'd be a lot more because rotary engines are pretty small
They're
dimensionally.
small, but the rotors themselves are like 30 pounds.
Oh wow.
Plus the center and end plates.
Yeah, and they've got big cast iron end plates, huh?
Those end plates are probably about anywhere from 80 to 110 pounds a pop. I've seen various weight readings on them for guys.
Wow.
So yeah, they're very dense, they're very heavy. And everybody thinks that the VG is, you know, the heaviest motor out there. Well, it's actually not.
Is it a cast iron or
It's
is it
a cast iron block with aluminum heads.
Oh, okay.
The pallet that the motor came on, it was motor, the transmission, and everything else like that, weighed in at 701 pounds.
Oh, okay.
Which is the exact same as an RB25.
Yeah, that's not bad at all.
Exactly, and I got all of that weight behind the steering rack, and about half of the motor's weight is behind the strut towers. So it still has a very great, very nimble, very, very agile sense of handling.
Yeah. Oh, I love that compressor surge.
That right there is my favorite range.
Yep. Got a nice deep grunt to it.
And it's not obnoxiously loud.
What'd you do for exhaust on this?
It's 2.5 inch from the turbo back.
Okay.
And there's one resonator and then a muffler right at the end, and that's it.
Yeah.
I do have future plans to put in an X pipe that's going to take out a little bit of the burble.
Yeah. Kind of clean up the exhaust note a little bit.
Got kind of a drrrr sound to it right now, especially in the lower ends. But that's going to clean all that out, just make it a nice, silky, smooth exhaust note.
Yeah. Yeah, make it sound a little bit more tuned.
Exactly.
A little bit less Subaru-y.
Yeah. Little Subaru-y on the low end.
Man, this thing sure is happy around the corners, though.
Oh yeah. And that's what the RX7 was meant to be. It was just a happy cornering, very well handling car.
Yeah.
And even though I've taken out the rotary, which is, you know, the key part to that, you know, what I've ended up with, I'm still very, very pleased with the results.
Yeah.
This thing's still got plenty of grip. Its pivot point is nice. It just rotates around.
Yeah.
It doesn't really understeer, and I've tried several times to, you know, to put myself in a situation where it's like, okay, where is that understeer point? And I haven't found it yet.
Yeah, and so having done the swap, I mean, you take what's already really good about this RX-7 chassis, and then you add to it and give it good power and torque.
Exactly. And that's the main thing that I love about this motor is just how much sheer torque it has.
Yeah.
You know, that's something that, you know, that's a luxury that the rotary engine did not have.
Yeah, of course.
You know, by the time you feel its torque band kicking in, you know, it's already, you know, 8,000-9,000 revs.
Yeah. Broke free in second there.
Oh yeah.
Woo!
I've actually had times where I've been in third and broke free.
Oh my gosh. Super awesome car. Has just power for days, man. Well, thank you for the ride, sir.